I do not believe God can be this demonic or moronic. They do.
Koran 79, verse 1. I swear by those angels who violently tear out the souls of the wicked and drag them forth to destruction, by those who gently take out the souls of the disbelievers, by those meteors rushing by, swimming along, angels or planets, and by those who press forward as in a race, the angels or stars or horses.
The translators added, clueless as to what their God was trying to say.
And by those who regulate the affair.
Mohammed contradicted two essential elements of Islam. This Quranic passage is a far cry from perfect. It isn't even comprehensible. And throughout the Quran, the Lord claims that He will reform decomposing men bodily as He retrieves them from the grave. If we are to be reassembled in the flesh, why are our souls torn out? And why does this separation occur before judgment?
Koran 79, verse 6. On the day the earth and mountains will shake in violent commotion, followed by oft-repeated commotions, and everybody will die. Hearts on that day shall palpitate, beating painfully in fear and anxiety. Cast down will be their owners' eyes.
Mohammed was having fun now. You can almost see him getting all worked up.
Koran 79, verse 10. They say, shall we be restored to our former state, even after we have become rotten, crumbling bones?
That's exactly what I just explained. Bodies are reformed, which makes soul separation nonsensical, for Islam anyway. Again, without the benefit of an intelligible transition, we're asked,
Koran 79, verse 15, has the story of Moses reached you?
The only place the Meccans could have heard of Moses is from the same source Mohammed heard it, the Hanifs, who had heard it from the Jews, both of whom he plagiarized.
When his Lord called upon him in the valley of Tuah twice, go to Pharaoh, verily he has become inordinate, transgressed all bounds, and rebelled, and say to him, wouldst thou that thou should be purified?
Okay, I let that verse go unedited. You'll have to figure out what Allah was trying to say on your own. Normally I try to clean up his stylistic and grammatical errors in order to make the reading easier.
Verse 19, and that I guide to you your Lord, so you should fear him.
Not love him, for to know the dark spirit of Islam is to fear him. There is nothing more dangerous than a little knowledge. Still in Mecca, Mohammed didn't know enough about Moses or his mission to keep from impugning himself. The reason Yahweh sent Moses to Pharaoh had nothing to do with the Egyptian monarch and everything to do with the Jewish people. On the corruption scale, Pharaoh was less rebellious and inordinate than most other dictators. In fact, Egypt was the most moral of all ancient societies. But the Jewish people were enslaved, and Yahweh wanted them freed. These errors were not careless. They were part of Mohammed's twisted plan. The prophet was a failure among his people. They mocked him and his claims mercilessly. To redeem himself, our charlatan needed to make his self-serving quest look like a godly mission. So he elected to corrupt the Exodus story. Only it didn't fit. Moses wasn't sent as a messenger to preach to Pharaoh. He was sent to free his people from bondage. Therefore, Mohammed had to corrupt the story to serve his personal agenda. But he didn't do a very good job.
Koran 79, verse 20. Then Moses showed him the great sign, but Pharaoh rejected and disobeyed.
Sorry, the first sign wasn't mighty. In fact, it was so meaningless it was replicated by Pharaoh's magicians. Moses' staff became a snake. It wasn't until Pharaoh became obstinate that Yahweh's signs, not Moses', became plagues of epic proportion.
Verse 21. He turned his back, striving against the Lord.
Oops, Pharaoh wasn't fighting against God. He thought he was a god. Pharaoh was trying to keep his Jewish slaves, nothing more.
Then he collected his people and cried, I am your Lord, the Most High.
Good grief, Mohammed's Lord needs a history lesson. Pharaoh, like most dictators of his day, was considered to be a god, but never the Most High. The pharaohs built temples to the sun god, Amun-Ra. Allah and our Rahman, pagan moon gods themselves, ought to have known that.
Koran 79, verse 25. So the Lord seized him with punishment for his last and first crime, making an example of him. Truly this is an instructive warning for whoever fears the consequences.
With every word, Mohammed dug himself in deeper. Yahweh never seized Pharaoh, nor did he make an example of him. All Yahweh did was up the ante until Pharaoh let his people go. The truth simply didn't fit Islam's agenda or capabilities. Mohammed couldn't even coax his spirit to turn a snake into a stick. Yet he is without excuse. He claimed Allah was Yahweh, so he should have known about the exodus of his people. But alas, without these bastardized Bible stories, his Koran would have been a very thin book, a pamphlet at best. Without segue, we jump to
Koran 79, verse 27. What? Are you the harder to create, or is heaven? He raised its height and put it into a right good state.
This must be a trick question, because we are harder to create. You can find Allah's heaven replicated in any whorehouse. Throughout the Quran, the proofs of God's existence are absurd. Here heaven, which cannot be seen, is called a sign.
Koran 79, verse 29. Its night he endows with darkness, and its splendor he brings out.
By his own admission, he is the prince of darkness. This is the third time Islam's dark spirit has shown an affinity for the night. Score another point for those who claim Islam is demonic. The Quran says its God
spread the earth, brought water therefrom,
and
fixed the mountains firmly to be a benefit for men and cattle.
Then,
in Koran 79, verse 34, when the disastrous calamity comes, and hell fire shall be placed in full view for all to see, then for him who rebelled, hell fire will be his home.
In a verse that could define hypocrisy, Mohammed, the ultimate sexual libertine, tells us that those who refrain from lust will be rewarded with lust.
Koran 79, verse 40. For those who feared standing before his Lord's tribunal and restrained himself from impure lustful desires, their abode will be the garden of bliss.
Well, this wasn't the most demonic surah, or the most dim-witted. It was the most poorly written. It's little wonder Muslims say the Quran cannot be translated. Thus far we have reviewed 25 surahs, nearly a quarter of Allah's book. We have yet to encounter anything profound, anything that resembles holiness. And as we turn the page to the 80th surah, we discover that it opens without benefit of a subject.
Quran 80, verse 1. Frowned and turned away.
The translators assumed it was
the prophet.
But it's time I present a surah without benefit of Allah's little helpers, so that you might see how they were actually written. The
He frowned
surah.
Frowned and turned away, because there came to him the blind man. And how can you know that he might become pure, or that teaching might profit him? As for him who thinks himself self-sufficient, to him you attend. What does it matter to you if he will not become pure? But as to him who came to you running, it is afraid. Of him you are neglectful, and divert your attention to another. Nay, indeed, it is an admonition, so whoever wills, let him mind it.
Grammatical errors, omissions, and poor writing quality aside, this surah demonstrates why Ishaq's sira is more essential to Islam than the Quran. Without the context his chronology of oral reports provides, this Quranic story, like all others, is senseless. Ishaq explains that while trying to promote himself, Mohammed ignored this poor blind man in favor of a Quraysh chief. The reason was obvious. The chief had everything Mohammed had coveted. The blind man didn't. Teaching the blind man would not profit him.